Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the WK Speaker Series. And welcome, everyone. My name is Fezokuhle. I am in IB1, and I will be your moderator for today. Brief reminder that this meeting and this speaker series is being recorded, so please keep a lookout for that recording, which will be made available to you in due time. There is a Q&A, so please do if you have any questions, post them in the chat. Keep the chat flowing and going. We love and enjoy to read the chat from time to time, and hopefully, if time permits, we will have the opportunity to address any questions you may have for our speakers. Please also remember to mute your mic as you enter, and yeah, if you can, keep your videos on. We love to see your wonderful faces. These speaker series are always amazing, and that's enough from me. It is time to introduce our speaker for tonight. Today, we have with us Fezokuhle Khumalo. Fezokuhle is a skilled molecular biologist and entry-level public health professional with history of working in clinical and research laboratories. She completed her undergraduate at Lake Forest College, majoring in biology with a minor in neuroscience. At present, she is developing a candidate viral vectored vaccine against SARS-CoV-2 as her master's in medical virology research project at the Institute of Infectious Disease and Molecular Medicine, University of Cape Town. In addition to being concerned with access to public health, Fezokuhle is devoted to ensuring access to education, which she does in her work at the Knowledge Institute, and was a part of the team that won the MIT Ideas Challenge Solve 2021, winning 21,000 for SASA, an online platform that seeks to revolutionize the tertiary application process in Eswatini. So please join us and welcome the lovely speaker, Fezokuhle Khumalo. Fezokuhle, could you introduce yourself in a minute? Just 1 minute, introduce yourself.
Okay, firstly, Sanbonani, thank you very much, Owengosi, for the introduction, and thank you, Waterford, for this opportunity. Like you said, I'm Fezokuhle Khumalo. I am from the Kingdom of Eswatini, from a place called Enyageni. I am an inquisitive person. I have devoted my life to answering questions, and I think that's why I found myself in the natural sciences. I've always been a white child, and that continues to be the guiding path for how my life is playing out. I think that's enough as an introduction for now.
It is a great introduction. How did you end up at WK?
So I have an uncle who taught at Waterford in the early 90s, I believe. And he has a daughter who were the same age, and we were joined at the hip. And so I was visiting at their house one time, and I think he wanted his child to go and write the interview at Waterford. And so they asked if I wanted to tag along. And of course I said yes, and my parents allowed me to go. I wrote the interview, and the rest is history. When I pitched it to my parents, they were for it. And here we are. Yeah.
What was or were your expectations when you started at WK, and were they met?
So as a Swazi, there was always a general idea of Waterford as a rich kids school. I definitely had that expectation as I was coming up the mountain. But you know, you get there and it's not really like that. I didn't immediately feel the disparities. So was that expectation met? No. And then as I was progressing, I remember going to Form 4, Form 5 in Esiveni Hostel and just being excited for the independence that came with. And then going on to IB and being excited to be, you know, free and a university student. I didn't anticipate the work pressure that came with the IB. So I don't know if that was an expectation I had, but definitely it took me by surprise. So I don't know if I could say I had big expectations per se about Waterford. I was just 11 years old and excited to go and start big school. Yeah, thanks.
You talked about the IB pressure, and it is still the same. I can certainly relate. That workload is a lot. What was the biggest lesson for you through your WK experience?
It definitely has to be civic engagement. Like I said, I was 11 when I started at Waterford. And the idea of community service, I remember being with the Malias and going out to do community service on the weekends. And that's something that Waterford continued to build in me every year from Form 1 up until IB2. And so walking away from WK, that idea that you have a responsibility to serve in your community, that you have a duty to care about people around you, to do your part wherever you can, is something that has stuck with me forever. And so if I find myself idle, I always try and look for an opportunity that allows me to be engaged in some sort in a civic manner. So definitely that's the biggest thing that has stuck out.
I hear you. Community service still remains such an important part, even in my life. So I see a bit of myself in your answers, because I think
Nice.
one big lesson, if that everyone should take away, really is, we have such great potential, and if we invest that in community service, I think it will do so much good. Can you share your journey with us since being at WK?
Ooh, okay. Right. So I finished at Waterford in 2012, excuse me, and I went on to Lake Forest College. And I remember having to choose between Bates and Lake Forest College and getting a better offer at Lake Forest. And also I liked Chicago. So I get there and I majored in biology and minored in neuroscience. And something that never shows up in my transcript or anywhere is that I was also a religion minor. And how that came about is that I was taking advantage of the liberal arts education system of America. And I thought, let me take a religion and science class just for fun. And I absolutely enjoyed that class because it became a symbol for who I was. I'm a Christian, but also I'm a scientist. So I found myself having many questions and being caught in between. And that class allowed me to answer so many questions and to ask more questions. So I ended up taking religion courses, but could not qualify as a minor because I missed one course. So it's never there, but I like to put it out there that I was a religion minor. Anyway, I graduated. Oh, I did study abroad at Lake Forest College. I also did 2 internships, one at the Center for Chicago Neuroscience Taste and Smell Situation. And then the other one was working with victims of abuse in their countries. And that was, I think, where the need for doing more in the health sector came from. Because when I finished at Lake Forest, I had the question of whether or not I stay on for OPT or if I move back home. OPT is that 2-year working visa that you get when you finish school. And I knew that I wanted to be back in Southern Africa. I wanted to work in Southern Africa. At that time, I was interested in genetics, and I thought I wanted to explore that field back at home. But also, it was around the time when the political climate in America was a bit tricky because Trump had just won presidency. And so things were uncertain for international students. So I opted for the safer option and I moved back home. And getting back to Eswatini was a bit of a curveball that I hadn't expected because the working force, the working world was difficult to break into. And so I found myself looking for opportunities to volunteer, knocking on doors here and there, trying to get an opportunity. I ended up volunteering at the World Bank, where we had a survey going out into the rural Eswatini, and where we were asking families about the impact of a cash flow project on their health, specifically looking at HIV and tuberculosis. And that was an extremely humbling and eye-opening experience for me. And I think it was necessary because I had just come back from America, completely removed from the reality of Swazis, never having experienced and seen the reality of the poverty that's out there in Eswatini. So having to come to that and blending in and having that experience for a good, I think it was 4 or 5 months or so, was really necessary and extremely eye-opening for me. And so from that experience, that ended. And I found myself again having to look at what happens next. And so I reached out to my network, and an alumnus, one of his mother actually worked at the Ministry of Health in Swaziland. And so I set up a meeting with her and I asked her for contacts and I explained my story. And then she gave me people that I could reach out to in the public health sphere in Swaziland, and said I should mention her name. So that was a way to get me into the door. So I did. And fortunately, the chief laboratory technologist of the Mbabane Government Hospital was willing to give me an ear. So I went up and I met with her, and she was a bit hesitant at first to letting me in because usually their internship comes through the government universities, and I was just this independent student. But eventually she let me in and she told me to just explore. And explore I did. I rotated around the departments in the government hospital laboratory. I started off in anatomical pathology, where I was looking at cervical cancer and HPV. And then from there, I moved on to hematology, where I was doing blood tests. And then from that, I moved on to microbiology. And so this, again, was an eye-opening experience because I had no idea that coming from a biology laboratory was different to going into a medical science laboratory. I thought I'd be fine. And then I got in there and I knew nothing. So I spent a lot of the time trying to learn everything that was happening in there, getting my hands dirty with everything I could, and making friends as much as I could. So when the time came to leave after 3 months, I had made a friend. She was Taiwanese, and she was a cytopathologist in the anatomical pathology department. And she said, how about you teach me English and I'll pay you whilst you're looking around for the next engagement to have. And so I thought that was fair. So I started teaching her English. I was tutoring her a few days a week in exchange for some money. And she started spreading the word to her colleagues and her friends. And I ended up tutoring every day of the week to several Taiwanese doctors. And so word got around and it became a thing, right? And so I enjoyed that part. I tutored quite a bit. And then I realized I'm making substantial money from this thing and I enjoy it. How about I make it into a business? So Asifunze Tutoring Services was born. I started a tutoring business and I tutored for a few months. And in that time, I was telling the Taiwanese doctors what my career aspects look like. And one of them went home to Taiwan. And so he had a friend who was a university principal or something. And so he said I should apply for a scholarship at his university. So that happened. I ended up, before that, I worked at MTN. As I'm applying to universities all over the world, I had a short stint at MTN where I was a social media intern for their 21 days of yellow care. And what that looked like is we'd go out to the communities and try to implement these interventions that MTN puts in place to better upskill, educate, and empower the youth of Swaziland to just being better and standing on their own in a sustainable manner. And that was also necessary for me to learn because I didn't know then that it would come into my public health interest later on. So I worked at MTN for a few months, and then in the meantime, I'm applying for universities all over the world, South Africa, everywhere. And I'm getting accepted in some, but I'm not getting funding. So it just wasn't working out. And then eventually Taiwan worked out and I left. And I got to Taiwan, long story short, things didn't work out there because firstly, I was being taught the course in English. So, I mean, in Mandarin, sorry. So imagine taking a master's of biotechnology and learning molecular genetics in Mandarin, in Chinese. So I stuck it out for a few months. I tried to be stubborn because I knew that I had worked hard for the opportunity and I wanted it so bad, but I was miserable. And so I left. And when I quit at that university, I remember having to decide if I go home and it's back to the struggle, or if I remain in Taiwan and I figure things out. And so I decided to teach English in Taiwan because I had already been exposed to teaching before in my tutoring capacity. I had already fallen in love with education because I linked up with TKI just before I left. So I found an agent and I taught English and I moved to another city and I was teaching kids aged 4 to like 16 years old, which was another experience because I had to be super energetic and bubbly all the time. So there I was, a biologist interested in human health, teaching English every day. I was miserable, but I had made peace with that. That was my position. And I was trying to figure out how to work from that to move forward. In the meantime, as I was applying before I left Swaziland, I applied for the Mandela Rhodes Foundation Scholarship. And so when I was in Taiwan, that came through and I was interviewed and I got the scholarship. How it works is Mandela Rhodes doesn't give you access to a university. They just fund you and you need to gain acceptance into a university. So I had the task of getting into a varsity in South Africa specifically. And I was failing to do that. I got rejected by every single university in South Africa that I applied to. And I was applying for honors level. So now I got miserable because it's November and schools in South Africa start in January. Mandela Rhodes is emailing me every week asking, what university are you going to so we can pay tuition? And I don't have a school. So come, I think it was mid-January, a Swazi student who was a previous beneficiary of Mandela Rhodes reached out and just checked in on me and to see how it was going. And I told him that, dude, I'm getting rejected everywhere. And he said, try apply for a master's. And so that was strange to me because I was getting rejected for an honors level program. But this guy insisted that I apply for a master's. And so I did. And I got a random email one day from a professor at UCT saying that he's looking for a student to do research in Ebola vaccines and asked if I was interested. And so we interviewed. And just as the interview was starting, he had his supervisor there, who is the head of the research group. So she came and she said, before you start the interview, I need you to know that I took a second look at your transcript and your degree. And the South African Qualification Authority verified your degree incorrectly. You actually qualify for a master's degree. And all along, they've been thinking that you don't qualify for an honors degree. And so she said, we checked with UCT's internal verification board and they've given us a go ahead to admit you for a master's. And so go ahead with the interview. So that completely blew me off because I was beginning to doubt my American education. I thought something was wrong with my degree. It didn't match up to South African standards. I started doubting myself a lot. So this was a big nod when I heard this from her. So they interview me and they tell me they will get back to me within a week. And 30 minutes later, I got an email that they had admitted me into UCT. So now the date is like, I think 23rd or 24th of January. And I'm due in Cape Town for a Mandela Rhodes mandatory workshop. I think it was the 25th of January, somewhere there. And I had to fly home as soon as I could to attend that workshop. But as that's happening, COVID is hitting in Asia. So everything is a bit of a panic. The world is shutting down, everyone's freaking out, and I'm trying to get myself back home. Flights were crazy expensive because it was a Chinese New Year, but thankfully we made a plan and I came back home. So I made it on time, went to Swaziland, got my visas, came back to South Africa and began the journey. So when I got here, I thought I was coming in as an Ebola student. I met my supervisor, I think that first week when I arrived, which was a week before lockdown. And he said, we had a meeting in the department and we think you should study COVID. And so that's how I became a medical virology student studying a vaccine for COVID. Thank you. That's my journey.
That is such an amazing journey. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to it. There were ups and downs, and I'm glad that you rose above all of them. It's quite fascinating, and I think it's great inspiration for anyone, especially me in IB1 now, looking for unis. It's great inspiration, and thank you for your story. Speaking to someone who is unfamiliar with medical virology, how would you describe it?
Okay, so it's the study of viruses. Virology is a study of viruses. And to simplify what a virus is, I would say it's germs that are naturally occurring in the atmosphere. And as a medical virologist, you study what those germs are doing to the human body. And then when you go into vaccinology, which is where I am, you then are trying to find ways to make vaccines to circumvent those germs, either to prevent infection or to deal with an infection that has already occurred, in simple terms.
Can you still hear me?
I can hear you now. I think I lost you for a second there.
Thank you. Apologies for that. The next question is basically, can you please share with us what research you're currently pursuing?
Okay, so I am developing, or I have developed, a viral vectored vaccine against SARS-CoV-2. And in simple terms, I made a vaccine for COVID. So right now we're at the stage where we are testing it in mice, and we just put in the second dose. So we'll be testing with 3 doses. And I think we're putting in the 3rd dose next week. And then we're going to have to collect their blood to measure the antibody response and to see how effective the vaccine is. Yeah, that's my work.
That is so fascinating. I think my mind is blown. You have literally created a COVID vaccine. I don't think anything tops that really on just like my scale of achievement. And there's still so much to be done by me, but that is so amazing. So what influenced you to pursue this career path?
So that's a tricky one because I view medical virology as a conduit for me. I don't think I am at my career end yet because I want to be in public health. I want to be an epidemiologist. I want to be using the research that I am doing in the lab and translating that, figuring out how we make sure that people who do not have access to vaccines and medicine, for example, can actually access that research that we do in the labs. So I'm definitely looking at pivoting completely from being in the lab to working out in the field in an epidemiology capacity and looking at implementation research. So I do think it's a pathway that I'm going through. I'm not there yet, but here I am.
I mean, I suppose you can use the saying it's only up from here. So
I hope
hopefully,
so.
and I think you will. And I think you will get to achieve all of that. And I think as you do, we'll follow your progress because this is so inspirational. The next question is, what have been
I lost you, Owen Gosi. Are you there?
apologies for that? Yes,
Okay.
apologies for
Yeah.
that. I'm back. What have been the highlights of your research?
Ooh, it's definitely got to be learning. I can explain. So I came in with a pure biology and neuroscience background, very little lab work experience in immunology. When you work in medical virology, you're basically in immunology. And I knew about the human body. I knew that we have antibodies, but that was all I knew. And so in the 2 years, I literally have had to learn from scratch everything. And I think it's a blessing in disguise that I came in just before lockdown because everybody went home and the lab shut down. But the university allowed those of us who were studying COVID to stay on. And so I was allowed to be there as the only student with my supervisors, and I got that attention from them to learn everything step by step. So I'm super proud of myself for that, because now that I'm writing up my thesis, everything makes sense. When I read papers, when I'm reading literature about COVID, when I'm reading about vaccines, I'm able to understand everything that's going on, just like someone who's been in the field all along. So it's definitely got to be the fact that I had to do a whole lot of learning in just 2 years.
This makes your story so, so interesting and intriguing. I don't think I've been explaining it. I've been saying each and every time, but I'm thoroughly,
Yeah.
thoroughly so inspired by this. And on another note, a different one really, what have been some of the challenges that you've faced in your line of work and how have you overcome these?
Ooh, failure. Um, Definitely failure. One thing about lab research is that you will fail 9 out of 10 times. In fact, 9.5 times out of 10, the result will be a fail. And in the beginning, I didn't understand that. I had a whole breakdown in the lab because I was fresh and things were just not working out. And there were no other students here to tell me that this was normal. And so I just kept failing because that's what you do in the lab. And it was such a difficult lesson to learn. And now, though, looking back, I'm glad I did, because I've become super comfortable with failure. I've learned to fail fast. I've learned to troubleshoot. And I've learned that, you know, when you hit a wall, you think quickly and you use that information, that failure, to figuring out your next step. So yeah, that was very hard. At some point I thought of quitting, because I just couldn't, for 6 months, couldn't get this one experiment to work. And it was hard, but you stick it out.
The next question is, what do you hope to achieve with the work that you're doing?
So with my work, it's really about equitable access to vaccines in Southern Africa specifically. I'm becoming deeply concerned, having seen in the pandemic that Africa has basically zero manufacturing capacity, large scale, for vaccines, right? So we rely heavily on the West to give us vaccines. And that has had politics carrying in place. It's had a lot of, you know, debates going on. And as a result, we got vaccines later than everybody else. And yet we have the knowledge and we have the skill sets to produce vaccines. So I definitely need to be making sure that the work we're doing in the labs is reaching the people on the ground in Southern Africa, in the poverty-stricken areas. Yeah, it made me so aware, and shockingly aware, that we are crippled as Africa, and yet we have so much brain power sitting, you know, in the labs, and we can't get it out to the people.
Thank you so much. This is a reminder to everyone that the chat is still open. And if you have any questions, please do keep them in the chat, and we enjoy seeing and reading, and we will address them in due time. Thank you. The next question I have is, what do you think medical virology is playing and will play in creating a sustainable future?
Again, it goes back to the idea of equity and the equitable access of vaccines, in the sense that as medical virologists, we focus on getting the research out. We focus on the end product, the vaccine, right? But now we're starting as a field to be thinking about, how can we make sure that as Africans, we're not left behind? How can we make sure that as not only Africans, just low-income countries, we're not left behind? So we're looking at things like biofarming, which is where you're using plants to grow proteins and to make vaccines. And my study, actually, my research, is 1 out of 4 vaccines that have been made in our group. And so it's part of a bigger study where we'll be comparing the different vaccine platforms to see which one is better. One of those is based on plants. And that's purely because we're trying to make sure that we can do what we can as Africans using what we have to make sure we're never left behind in the next pandemic, because it's coming. So yeah, we're using what we can, plants.
Thank you so much. And my next question is one that I'm hoping will touch most people in the chat, especially if you're still a current student. How would you advise current students who are pursuing a similar path?
I would say, and this is something I think I always stick to, is that you've got to be stubborn. It's not easy, especially after I mentioned the failure situation. That really almost took me out. And it takes many people out of the game. So you have to stick it through and become comfortable with failure. It's a very difficult lesson to learn that I think I needed to be here to learn it now that I learned it now. But I would just encourage you that you will be hit hard, especially in lab work or in natural science research. You will definitely experience failure, but you just need to stick it through, because eventually, you know, it's the fun of it. You might cry every now and then and be a sad human being for a few months, but you'll be fine. And, you know, it's worth it in the end, because we're focusing on the end goal of getting the vaccines out, or of getting that research out. So stick it through and be stubborn with your goals and your dreams. Yeah.
I think you mentioned such important things, especially I think one of the things that I struggle with is actually, you know, dealing with failure. I feel like once I failed, my world is crumbling down, everything is crashing. There's no left, there's no right. And I think slowly, and even through this program, this IB program, I'm slowly beginning to understand that it's okay. Just like calm down, stop crying, and then just look to the future and like look forwards and get something done. And I think, many people are benefiting from what you're saying. And I am so grateful to be able to hear all of this firsthand.
Thank
And
you.
at this point, we will open the floor for questions and comments. So if you can, please do unmute and ask your question. But there is a question here that I see that I will ask right now.
Okay.
And from, apologies if I mispronounce it, but Mokari. And it is, how do you stay sane with all the going-ons in the lab and outside the lab?
Oh, it's bold of her to assume I'm sane. I'm joking. I am sane. I have a very, very strong support system that in the beginning I shied away from. I tried to be strong and do it on my own and act like I've got this. I was scared to ask for help. But at some point, very early in the program, I realized that I was actually going to lose my mind if I didn't lean on people. So I literally will call someone, even if it's in between an experiment and I can feel that this is now stressing me out. I will pick up the phone and call a friend, call my sister, call my mom, call my dad, anyone. I will call my support system out and just be like, help. If it means I cry in the lab, sometimes you need to shut the door in that laboratory and shed a few tears and then get out and get back into work. You do what you got to do. So I've allowed myself to release it and not bottle it up and try to act strong, because I think in the sciences, there is that misconception that you need to act like you've got it all together or you know everything, when actually no one knows anything. We're all trying to figure it out. So I learned that, and I just embraced the fact that I can't do it on my own and I need to lean on people. And then I dance a lot in the labs. Yeah, I put on music and I dance.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the most fun thing you've learned on this journey?
Ooh. Cloning. Geez, I enjoy cloning so much. I didn't realize I would. It's fascinating to me that you can make something out of like two different parts and put it together and it can end up as a whole vaccine. Like it's mind-blowing. So every time that I've had to clone and it works, because most times it doesn't work, it's an amazing experience. So that's been, I love that question because I hadn't thought about it. But yeah, cloning.
Thank you. We are opening the floor for more questions and comments, so please do unmute your mic and ask away. Even if it's a comment, that is okay.
Can I ask something? Hi, Fezo.
Hi, Ms. Patel.
How are you?
I'm fine. Good to see you.
You look absolutely amazing, and you're inspiring. I'm not quite an octogenarian, but I'm definitely over 60. So you definitely.
You don't look a day over me.
It's the hair dye. You've inspired me with your resilience, and I think that's one of the hardest things for everyone. And you've actually lived through it. The number of times you put yourself up, and I don't think you can teach that to anyone. I think we all have to look to people like you and your journey and learn that way. So thank you for that. But okay, my question, I hope it's not a flippant one. What is your response to the anti-vaxxers?
So firstly, thank you so much, Ms. Patel. This is such a full circle moment. I remember being in your art class and wow, this is such a big moment. Thank you so much. How do I respond to anti-vaxxers? Firstly, I breathe. because it's easy to want to get frustrated by people who are hesitant or who are not about the vaccine. And then it's just to say that we can't get out of this pandemic until we're all vaccinated. It literally, mankind right now depends on you being vaccinated. For our lives to go back, we've lost so much. We've lost so many people close to us. Everyone has lost someone. It's up to you. This virus will continue because as viruses do, they will mutate. And as they mutate, they become stronger, which they're doing every day. And you, as a person who isn't vaccinated, you are what we call immunocompromised. You give the virus room to mutate within you into a stronger version of itself. That means the cycle continues. We literally need you as mankind to do your part. It's everyone's social responsibility at this point. So it's just to appeal and just dig within you as a person. If you want to move on from this situation that we're in, it literally lies in your hands for you to go and vaccinate. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I am certainly noting that response down, and I am going to use it every single time I come across an anti-vaxxer. I'll breathe, and then I'll tell them the facts. I will lay it down.
Make sure you're kind. Yes.
Yeah, lay down the facts. Anyone else? I see there's a hand raised. Tembi, please do take it away.
Hi, Fezo.
Just Tembi, hi.
I'm so proud of you.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. This is so wonderful. I'm sorry I came late to your talk because I mean it is work hours for us, but it was wonderful to hear from you. And it's so amazing the amount of work that you have done. And I'm so proud. I feel like a very old sister now. But my questions were, when are you finishing your program? And the second one, like what's next? Sorry to push, I hate that question, like personally sometimes, but I heard you talking about like wanting to be involved in the epidemiological part of, of vaccine and, and infection, which is wonderful, especially for Africa, because that is so important. So what if you have a pathway, or have you thought like as far as that? I work in like infectious disease vaccine part of it, like majorly on HIV. So I don't want to be stealing you, but I'm like looking. I'm looking at. But we do want more people also in Africa. So yeah, just. What is the next step? And if you have a pathway, and if you'd like to connect for me to steal you at some point, I am looking.
Sis Tembi, first of all, I need everyone to know that when I was in Form 1, Sis Tembi was in IB. Were you volunteering or were you in IB too?
I had finished IB.
You had finished. Yes. And we literally refer to her as Sis Tembi. So it's just, when I saw your face, like my mind just, wow. Thank you, Sis Tembi, for being here and for the question. Finishing, fingers crossed, this December. I'm in the final stages of writing my thesis now. And what's next is definitely trying to get my hands dirty with public health. I recognize that as an epidemiologist, it's sort of a technical skill that you need to learn. And so I am looking at trying to do an MPH or an MSc epidemiology, but at the same time looking at entering the job market while I'm doing that. So it's a matter of whatever comes first, because you throw your eggs out there and you try and see, whatever will hatch. So I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you after this call. But yeah, I'm trying to jump in fully.
Thank you. And we have Josephine Alexander.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, especially to the ex-students who are here. I'm so thrilled to see all of you, Tembi, Guinea, and everybody has been doing well. I just want to congratulate Fezo for this wonderful achievement. I remember when she was looking for postgraduate place to go to, we were in engagement, and I was always sending her stuff, and we were praying and hoping, and I'm just so glad where you've ended up. Congratulations, and I'm so proud of you. Thank you. That's all I want to say. And to let you know that I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I have taken my vaccine.
Thank you, Josephine. This is wow. It's so heartwarming to see Waterford community that literally groomed me coming together today and supporting me like this. I'm so thankful. Josephine was there and we were praying through it, and it worked out. Thank you so much, Josephine. I appreciate you, and thank you for vaccinating.
The next question, which I think is quite as equally as important, is any tips you have for people moving back home after college in the US or abroad? It's usually a scary route for people to approach, but Fezokuhle has made it seem possible. So they're asking for any tips.
Okay, network, firstly, especially if you have gone through the Waterford pathway to getting to being abroad. I think we don't realize how much we have until it's all we have. So for me, at the time when I was just back from being abroad, looking around and nothing was working out, what worked for me was my networking skills. And it was through WK that I got many of the opportunities I got. So definitely being open to networking. And what that means is being bold and brave to knocking on those doors. I literally approached the Deputy Minister for Health and I just said, hi, can I have a chat? People are willing to help you if you come, you know, respectfully and you ask for their time and you ask for their assistance. It works out to just be bold, know your story and network with people. And then also being open and willing to accept and experience things outside of what you thought you would experience. Like I said, for me, going out into rural Eswatini for the survey that I was part of, and then being at MTN for social media with a biology background, completely different things. But now when I look back as a public health professional, it all has come together for my good. I will be going out into communities. That's exactly the work I want to do. And looking at those programs and learning how to implement and reaching out to people like that, it all came together for my good. So open up to whatever opportunities come your way whilst you're looking around for what you wanted or what you thought you wanted, because you really never know. Yeah.
Thank you. I think Susan has a question before I move on to the next one in the chat. So please do take it away.
Hi, Fezo.
Auntie Susan. Hi.
I just want to say I am so proud of you. And you said what I was going to say, which is that I'm just fascinated at how at each point of your journey, you were at the right place at the right time and how everything worked for your good. Imagine if Taiwan had worked out, you wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
What a powerful story.
Wow.
You have to write it out.
I have goosebumps. And Susan, thank you so much. This is my career code. Wow. Thank you so much. You are responsible for, for this product. Thank you so much. I really agree with you that I was at the right place at the right time for everything that fell into line.
Everything. Well done.
Thank you.
This is truly so heartwarming.
I'm gonna cry.
Honestly, if I was in your seat, I'd be crying. I do not know how you're not crying right now. The next question, though, is this is from Fezokuhle Khumalo. What steps would you advise any current high school pupils to take if they would be interested in following in your footsteps, i.e. To study what you're currently studying?
So thank you for the question, Fezid. So in terms of subjects, I definitely would advise going into biology and chemistry. quick story time. Chemistry, I ran away from chemistry. I thought I could do without, but when I got to first year of varsity, I couldn't be a biology major without 2 years of chemistry. So please do some chemistry where you can and some math. But also really what I have found out in hindsight is that there's no set pathway to these things, right? Like I am now finding myself in medical virology without any immunology background, and I managed to swim. So yes, you can have these basic subjects, but at the same time, you have to be willing to try everything that's out there. The beauty of a liberal arts education in the US is that thing that allows you to try different things to figuring out what you want. So for a high school student, I would say try things, join clubs, get involved on campus, do the most right now, because that's when you're going to discover what you like and what you don't like. And that's going to then come in handy while you're figuring your pathway out, which I still am as well. You know, I'm still getting my hands dirty in Cape Town, joining things here and there, still trying to figure out what I like and what I don't like. So definitely try everything safely.
I hope that answers your question, Fezokuhle. I think everyone, well, let me not say everyone, let me say me. I've actively run away from chem. It is my mission and my goal to continue to run away from chem. But I feel like alongside career path is gonna catch up with me. But whilst I'm still at that point, I'm running away.
You make a plan later on.
Exactly. I think what your story has taught me right now is that, you know what, where there's a will, there's a way, and we can always make a plan. Yes, which definitely. I think is really powerful, and I think I'll carry it on until like the end of IB2 and beyond. I hope that I have attended to all the questions. If there is any question that I haven't, or any question you might have, I will allow you to raise your hand in just like 2 seconds. If your hand shoots up, we will address that. And then if not, we shall move on. By 2 seconds, I really mean 30 seconds, but yes. All right, that wasn't 30 seconds, I'm aware, but I think we can move on. And Fezo, any final thoughts, any in closing?
It's a huge thank you to Waterford for this opportunity. I can't explain how honored I am to be on this platform. And it definitely was a full circle moment for me, knowing that I am where I am because of Waterford. Thank you to everyone that has come through tonight as well to support me. It takes a village, and my village pulled through, and I'm so grateful. And along the journey, and I just want to say that I am not there yet. Yes, I might look like I'm at the end of my master's, but in terms of my career, I'm not fully where I want to be yet. And so I'm really open to looking up whatever opportunities that may come my way. So thank you very much for this opportunity that you gave me tonight. I appreciate it.
I think, yeah, what I can also get from the speaker series today is, you know, the power of community, the power of family, and being in the school and the environment. I think, just like you were saying, it is full circle. And I hope every single person, alumni, current student gets to experience this and gets to experience, you know, this great community and how it does really pull through. And I think I'm starting to appreciate Waterford more and more. Like at first I was like, yes, this is a great place, but seeing your story and seeing how everything just came full circle is so moving. And I am so grateful for this opportunity to be able to hear your story at a time where I think it is perfect timing, that I needed it the most, you know, at the end of IB1, entering IB2. I think this was great, excellent timing. And to all the staff members at WK, I think I could just like express such great gratitude that you create this village, you create this warm village, and I am so eternally grateful, and I think I will be for quite some time. Thank you so, so much. And I don't have much to say. I think your story has really blown everyone away. And thank you so much, Fezokuhle. Thank you to the Advancement Office we are so grateful and thankful that you were all able to make it and to hear this wonderful story. I hope it has a special place in your heart. I always say that each and every speaker series is my favorite. And at the end of every series, I say, oh, wow, this was such a great, great speaker series. But this one, bookmark this one. This one really touched me. And I think it has, ignited this fire that I thought was really dead for quite some time. And I think I'm going to approach my education the rest of my life with, new motivation and new discipline. So thank you so much for your story. And we have reached the end of this amazing, and unfortunately the end of this amazing speaker series. I am so grateful to each and every person who came, and to each and every person here and who opened their mic and we saw their lovely faces, and to everyone who still has their camera on. We are so grateful. This is literally the best part of being at WK, these alumni speaker series. Thank you so much, Fezo. Thank you to the Advancement Office. And I think this is good evening and good night wherever you are across the world. Thank you for attending, and please do remember that this recording will be made available in due time. And yes, I think right now I can only just open the floor for any comments, any discourse, anything right now. The speaker series is over. We will leave the meeting on for a few minutes just so that everyone can just, talk to someone they see. And Fezo, if you see anyone familiar, we just want to open the space for that. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.